Let's get into some tips and strategies to avoid playing ourselves in this upcoming Sephora VIB sale. If you watched my last video, you know that was all about how influencers play us, but those of us who love makeup and skincare and are still crawling our ways out of the sunken place, we can go a bit too ham in these Sephora sales when they crop up, forgetting that 20% off ain't that good. And shout out to my Patreon fan, because I did a poll. I wasn't exactly sure which video you guys would prefer to see, whether you wanted to hear tips and strategies to avoid going broke during the Sephora holiday sale and during holiday sales in general, or if you wanted to hear my recommendations on what you might want to consider picking up in the holiday sale. Pretty much opposites. By a pretty wide margin, the tips for saving and not going broke video won. So thank you to everyone who voted. It seems like we're all on the same page. We're trying not to just give all of our money away to these corporations, because let's face it, shopping is fun. If you love makeup and skincare, shopping at Sephora during the sale still is fun. But to quote Better with Phoebe, a fellow YouTuber whom I love, no amount of makeup is worth endangering your financial future. Speaking of, Phoebe recently did a video with 5 of her own tips. She's done these before, but she did another one with more tips on how to be more strategic with your shopping in the Sephora sale. So I will link that here in a card as well as in the description box. Great channel, check her out. She's growing and I love to see it. But I had already sort of been thinking about my own tips and tricks to be a bit of an addendum to the video that I did earlier this year in the spring, which was very similar to this, more tips on how to not lose your mind during the Sephora sale. So I will link my own video as well in the description box, because I know quite a lot of you were not part of my nap fam back then. Tip number 1, I'm just going to get this out of the way because it's really easy and obvious, and that is to set a budget. But more accurately, set a budget and do not break it. If you set yourself a budget of $150 and in the back of your head you already know, well, I'm gonna try to stick to that, I might go over, then there's no point in setting a budget. If you are serious about being mindful of your spending, avoiding over-consuming, avoiding having makeup that you regret buying 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now, setting a budget and meaning it is a critical tip. It's not even a tip, it's a mandate if you are serious about not playing yourself in this sale. Tip number 2 is to take some time to really truly think about the things that are missing from your stash and from your routine. Think about things that there have been occasions where you wanted to reach for a certain product or certain color that did something, but you weren't hitting that mark with whatever you already have. This way, as you start to add things to your wish list or to your cart, you can really ask yourself, do I want this new thing only because it's new, only because it's getting a lot of hype on social media and YouTube right now? Was I even in the market for this item or this type of item before people started raving about it on social media? It's one thing if you've been saying for a long time now, man, I really wish I had a solid neon rainbow palette. But if you didn't really have much interest in that, and then all of a sudden you want one because there's a new one that looks kind of pretty, or you just hear your favorite YouTubers talking about one a lot, that probably isn't a reason to buy, because odds are you aren't going to use it that much. So again, think of those times where you were doing your makeup, where you had inspiration to do a certain look and you just didn't quite have something that fit a certain niche in your needs. I'll give you an example. I particularly love to use a lot of cream products, including cream eyeshadows. There have been many times where I'm building a look with my cream shadows and I really want to deepen up my outer V, but I don't really have a good matte black cream shadow to do that. So I clocked that in my little old noggin quite some time ago, and lo and behold, I've been waiting for an opportunity to pick one up on sale, and I've done my recon to sort out what's the best price point for me, what's, got pretty good reviews, that sort of thing. I've even gone to the store to swatch and see if one's going to be the right shade of black, the right depth for me. And that's just one example of how I suggest you approach the items that you do choose to purchase. In short, don't believe the hype. Think about things that you wanted before there was hype. Tip number 3, and this one, I'm going to confess I haven't done it myself because I think it'll be too painful, but consider adding up the cost of your past purchase regrets. Whether it's through just going through your stash and pulling out items that you've literally never touched, or maybe you've just swatched or used them once or twice and never again, looking through old online orders, whatever it is, and just do a literal or ballpark tally of just how much money money you spent on crap you never really used. I haven't done this recently, but I did do this and I actually turned it into a video, I think earlier this year, so I'll link that here in a card. Mercifully, I have gone on to use a lot of those items and love them, but I ended up selling a lot of them on Poshmark because they were completely untouched. And while I was able to recoup some of the money that I spent on those items, I would have been better off if I just hadn't spent that money in the first place, because the next step of this tip is after you do this either literal or general ballpark kind of figure of how much money you've wasted, once you see that number, really think about how many better ways that money could have been used. Whether it was just saving it for a rainy day, because we all need to have our 8-month emergency fund according to Susie Orman. Travel, an emergency that might have arisen in the past couple of months that you didn't really have enough finances to cover at the time, whatever the case may be. Tip number 4. This is one that you hear a lot in these sorts of videos, and that is to shop your stash, but I'm taking this one step farther. Don't just shop your stash to try to replicate the mood of the things that you are eyeing as a possible purchase in this sale. What I mean by that is when we're looking at, say, an eyeshadow palette or a lipstick or whatever it is, we are usually attracted to those things because we already like those colors, which means there's a good chance we might already have those colors. And in many cases, we're only inspired by this new palette or whatever because we haven't seen these colors arranged in this particular way. So really, we're inspired by the mood, the curation of a specific item, rather than it being that we literally don't have something very, very similar to these items. We like certain things as human beings, and we tend to pick them over and over. So again, it's not necessarily that we don't have this palette, it's that we haven't seen these colors arranged this way. So shop your stash, and odds are, if you have a lot of makeup, you do have that palette you're eyeing, and it's just spread out over 2 or 3 other palettes in your stash. You know, 2 shades in this palette, 3 shades in that one, maybe 1 shade in this one, and next thing you know, you've duped the thing that you were eyeing and you realize, hey, you know what? I actually don't need that. I'll just pull out these 3 palettes that I already have and I'll be able to replicate the kind of mood and feeling and looks or whatever it is that I was envisioning that I would create with the new item. My 5th and final tip is to do some research. Once you've more or less narrowed down the things that you want, make sure you look at the holiday sales that the brands themselves did last year. Most of the time when brands do their direct-to-consumer holiday sales, the discounts are significantly better than 20% off. They're usually 25% off and higher. Of course, this isn't true across the board, but there's a good chance you'll be able to find better deals outside of Sephora by just going direct to the brand and waiting a little while until after the Sephora sale is over and these sales actually begin. So just do a quick Google schmoogle and see which brands that are actually the ones who make items in your cart. See what they did last year, because odds are they'll probably do something equivalent or around the same this year. And that's pretty much it, except for one final mini bonus tip, and it's something that I tend to bring up a lot whenever I'm discussing Sephora, and that is to consider purchasing things from other places that have better rewards programs than Sephora offers. The obvious comparable would be Ulta. Ulta's point system has always been way better than Sephora's. I've gotten hundreds of dollars of free makeup over the years just because of their point system being so much better. And while Sephora does at last offer $100 gift cards to VIB Rouges only at a cost of 2,000 points, there's a lot of restrictions involved with them. They're kind of hard to get because they only offer them 1 or 2 days per week and then they sell out. Long story short, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, and in my opinion, it low-key isn't really worth it. Like, it's worth it if you already have that many points that you've just been hoarding for years of being VIB Rouge. I, for one, burned through all the points that I had just sitting around because I didn't want to waste them on deluxe samples, but I didn't really have anything better to do with them either until they introduced that new program where you can actually get the $100 gift cards. So while I have been grateful to get a couple of those and get items that I didn't necessarily want to pay for with my cash money, in the end, it's still just a lot of red tape. It's not that great. You can't even use the $100 gift cards with the 20% off sale. It's one or the other, so you're still having to buy a lot of items at full price unless you're actually shopping in the Sephora sale section, which we already know is trash. So my general policy is, if it's an item that I can get somewhere else, I don't get it at Sephora most of the time. Other retailers like Derm Store, Ulta, buying direct from brands, they're pretty much always going to give you a better reward than Sephora points will. And faster, because let's be real, hitting 2,000 points to get $100 back is a pretty high benchmark. And I know for a fact that you can hit $100 worth of points at Ulta way sooner. And you can also cash in your points at thresholds way lower than what it takes to reach that amount to even get $100. I think you can start cashing in rewards at Ulta as soon as you have enough points for like $2 off of something. So that is it. Those are my tips for surviving the Sephora sale. For Rouge, I believe the sale starts tomorrow, which is November 1st. As far as what my recommendations are, sorry, that one actually lost in the poll, so I'm not going to be doing that. But if you check my description box under any video, you can kind of see the things that crop up a lot from video to video that I use all the time, and it's a pretty good assessment of what my favorites and go-to GOAT products really are. And here's what, if you guys really want me to do a Sephora recommendation / what's in my cart video, if we get this video to an inordinate number of likes, I'll go ahead and film that too. In a way, I feel kind of relieved that didn't win because it does promote consumerism, kind of, sorta. But if you guys are just being nosy, I can appreciate that because I do love hearing what the YouTubers I watch are picking up or what they recommend. So if we get this video to 5,000 likes, I will film that video. Other than that, I got nothing else for ya. So happy Halloween. I hate Halloween. More accurately, I hate adults on Halloween. Kids, let them have their fun, but people dressing up as sexy, you know, mops or whatever, I don't get it. I don't get it. That is it for me today. But if you are participating in any Halloween shenanigans today, be safe. But beyond that, I got nothing for you except a gentle reminder. And that is, never trust anyone with a Morphe code. Don't do it. And by the way, yes, the merch is coming soon. Bye-bye.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now.